Welcome to a new episode of Soft Talks. I'm Jale İpekoğlu from Maxitech, and today our very special guest is joining us from San Francisco. He is Yanni Gamros, the head of business development at QCware, a Silicon Valley-based quantum computing software company. So, hi Yanni, welcome.
Hi, very nice to be here. Thanks for inviting me.
Welcome again, and thank you for accepting our invitation and being here today. I believe it will be very exciting to talk to you about quantum computers. So, if you'd like first, for a little bit of background for our audience, could you briefly introduce yourself and QCware, maybe touch upon how you decided to work in the quantum technologies?
Sure. So I come from a technical background. So I did my PhD in operations research at the University of Maryland. And then I started working actively in the field as a consultant and going out to large enterprises and doing professional service engagements on optimization projects and optimizing operations, optimizing business processes. Then that company was acquired by IBM. And at the same time, I was also changing some things in my career. So I shifted into a sales role from a technical role. So I did a 10-year stint at IBM. And at the end, I was leading the North American sales team for optimization and predictive analytics and all of the advanced analytics portfolio that IBM has. So then in about 2.5 or 3 years ago, the QCware CEO, Matt Johnson, reached out to me. And at the time, QCware was actually a very, very small company. I think it was basically 4 or 5 people strong. And they were already getting into the field of quantum computing and trying to understand basically how they can approach new customers. So they were basically looking for ideas, business development ideas of how to contact large enterprises and essentially sell the idea of quantum computing and get them excited and started to working with them. So they were looking basically for someone to head up sales and business development. And we had a few conversations. And very quickly, I was convinced that quantum computing could potentially be the next big thing in analytics, in advanced analytics, in optimization, in AI, in ML. I did a little bit of research on my own. And the more I researched the topic, the more excited I got about the possibilities. And so I decided to make the switch from a very large company like IBM to a very, very small company like QCware. But I'm glad I did it. I'm very excited to be working with QCware. So now to answer the second part of your question, which was about QCware, right? So QCware is a software quantum computing startup. So we basically build algorithms and software that takes problems from the classical world and solves them on quantum computers. And the reason why we do that is because we can potentially solve problems on quantum computers much, much faster and get better results than what we can get on classical computers. So not just faster solutions, but actually better solutions. And we, as a software and algorithms company, we approach the entire space from the algorithms perspective. Obviously, we have to partner with some of the very large vendors that are building hardware in the space. And we do that actually very, very frequently. But my point is that it takes essentially both types of companies, both the hardware companies that are building the quantum hardware and the software companies that are building the quantum algorithms to actually have an application to actually make these new computers actually useful.
Oh, yeah. So the term quantum technologies cover a wide range of topics. And as you said, it is exciting to witness new developments each day. And some of them are happening in university resource labs, or some of them are coming from companies like QCware. And but specifically for quantum computers, what is the current status of them?
Right. So they're definitely very, very new. And they're definitely, as we say, in their infancy, right? So it's going to take a few more years before quantum computers become large enough that they can address practical problems in production level settings. So right now, as you say, it's a technology that a lot of researchers are interested in. Researchers both in government, in academia, and in industry are taking a look at what quantum computers can do, but we cannot use them right now in production level settings just because they're not big enough yet to actually deal with all the data that we have in the real life problems that we want to solve in real life situations.
Yeah, but so in QCware, from what you said, I understand that you don't, at the same time, the university labs or the companies, hardware companies trying to scale this up, but in parallel, you're not waiting for it, trying to explore, you're exploring what we can do with near-term devices, right? And
absolutely. Yeah, you're right. So just because the devices are not ready yet doesn't mean that we don't have to prepare for them, right? So so that's actually our message to all the large enterprises and everybody listening to this and everybody that is hearing about quantum computing, is that now is the right time to actually start to engage, even though we're still a few years away from the time when these devices are actually going to make an impact in production. It's going to take a while before we have the skills and we have the understanding, and it's going to take a while for enterprises actually to build up a knowledge base within their departments so that they can understand how they can take advantage of quantum computing. So it's almost the same as looking at where ML and AI was maybe 5 or 6 or 7 years ago. ML and AI was considered to be a very powerful thing, but it wasn't. We hadn't actually realized the benefits of ML and AI. If you look at maybe just 6 years ago, right? We didn't have things like natural language assistance. We didn't have things like image recognition. I mean, these were only things that were done in research labs, right? And now natural language processing and image recognition is something that, you know, every technology company is thinking about, and every company is thinking about to integrate within their business processes. And we're kind of in the same way that AI and ML was basically 5 or 6 years ago. There's a significant lack of skills, just like there was a lack of data scientists back 5 or 6 years ago. So there's a lack of skills in quantum computing skills in existing companies. And also, in a similar way, hardware was an issue 5 or 6 years ago. We still had not really cracked the code of how to use GPUs 5 or 6 years ago with classical AI and ML. And currently, we still also are expecting hardware to become much more powerful in quantum computing. So there's these very, very strong parallels to where we were before and where we are now. And that's why if we apply the lessons learned from what happened in AI and ML, in classical AI and ML to quantum computing, the key lesson is get prepared early, start studying the problem early, start building knowledge base and skills in your company early. And that's basically our advice. And that's really what we do as QCware, how we help companies basically deal with this new technology.
Yeah, so basically you are trying to make this more commercially available, right? And can you tell us about some of the problems that you are working on at QCware?
Sure. Yeah. So at QCware, we've worked with very large enterprises in many different industry sectors, starting from finance. So actually, a very large percentage of our customers is in finance, where we've done things like portfolio optimization or Monte Carlo simulation for derivative pricing and VAR calculations that are very common for quantitative finance. We've also worked with large pharmaceutical companies. We've worked on molecular simulations for new drug discovery and also for machine learning problems to do image recognition on medical images. The other big sector is chemicals. Again, doing molecular simulations to simulate new materials and discover potentially new materials. And we've also done a lot of work actually in automotive. So automotive is one of these sectors that has been leading the charge, and they're trying to apply quantum computing in several different areas like manufacturing operations, logistic operations, potentially designing new batteries for electric vehicles, and also figuring out basically how to do better autonomous vehicles models. So there's many different places within the automotive sector that quantum computing can be applied. And finally, we've also done a lot of work in oil and gas. Many large operational problems in oil and gas can potentially benefit for quantum computing. They're optimization problems, and so they can benefit in a big way by quantum computing. And finally, also aerospace, where again you have hard engineering problems, very hard advanced analytics problems that where quantum computing can have an impact.
Yeah, and for all these use cases, I know QCware works with very big enterprises such as Airbus, BMW, Goldman Sachs, and so on. And as you mentioned, we don't have the sufficient quantum computing power yet to handle their production data, to work with big data. But so it means that it doesn't provide any return on investment for these institutions yet. But why do you think those companies are investing in working with quantum computers?
Yeah, very good question. So we believe that companies expect that as soon as quantum computers will be large enough to make a difference, there will be a race to use them to gain a competitive advantage in the market. And whenever you're running a race, you start training before the race actually starts, right? Actually, this was a quote that our good friends and customers from BMW told us at some point very, very early when we asked them that same question, right? That we wanted to get confirmation that they're serious about quantum computing. And basically they said, hey, look, whenever you're running a race, you need to prepare you need to train a lot before the race actually starts. So everybody expects that as soon as quantum devices become large enough to be used in business, this race to take advantage of them will start. And therefore, these large enterprises are seeing that in maybe as early as 2 or 3 years' time, there will be an opportunity to start using these devices to gain a competitive advantage. And therefore, it's best to start using them today, start building skills today to be ready basically for that, as opposed to trying to be a follower, try to be a fast follower and maybe failing as you're only basically getting into the game once these computers are more mature.
And so they are exploring the future technologies that will be disruptive in the future.
Exactly. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Go ahead.
Yeah. As Softtek and Maxtek is part of İşbank Group, I'm a little bit more curious about financial institutions like maybe Goldman Sachs or any other financial institution. Are they mostly interested in the advantage of the computational power, or do you think they are more concerned about the security aspect of it? Because, one of the popular predictions about quantum computers is that they will break today's widely used encryption methods, right?
Right. Yes, that is correct. Unfortunately, there's been a lot of people that have written about breaking encryption, quantum computers breaking encryption and breaking everything we do online because nothing is going to be encrypted. So we won't be secure to have communications. We won't be secure to execute transactions online. But rest assured that actually this is several decades away, right? So the quantum computer that will be able to break existing encryption standards is probably 20 or 30, or by some accounts, 40 years away. So there's actually a lot of time for us to prepare for that. It's not something that's going to happen very, very soon or very, very quickly. And frankly, what we can do is look at things, for example, like the National Institute for Standards and Technology, NIST, is already building a standard that we expect will hold up to quantum computers, right? So it's not like quantum computers can solve all problems, right? And they will be great at basically breaking all codes. There are still problems that are actually still very, very hard, even for quantum computers to solve. And what NIST is doing right now is basically devising a standard that will be used for future encryption standards and will be essentially quantum safe. And this quantum safe encryption will start essentially coming into the market in the next maybe 10 or a few more years, 10 or 20 years, and will keep essentially everybody safe, and we will still be able to use online transaction and online communications in the same way we use them today.
Yeah, and as you mentioned, NIST, I'm also curious about, from a larger perspective, how does the government support work for this? I mean, in the US, as far as I know, many government entities are exploring quantum technologies, and they are not limited to quantum computers, right? They are also looking into quantum sensing, quantum networks, or quantum key distribution for secure communication. And in the US, there is a National Quantum Initiative Act. I mean, they are already aware that this will be a technological transformation for the whole country. And what's your opinion about this? What should be a country's approach to take part in this development? What are the other countries are doing now?
Right. So first of all, this is very welcome, the fact that the government is investing in this technology. It's very welcome because also the government is seeing the potential disruption impact of this technology in some key areas also that have to do with technologies that can potentially affect security, right, for their people, right? So they have to make sure that communications are secure. They have to make sure borders are secure, and they have to make sure that the online communications again are secure. And so governments are looking at essentially the potential disruption that this technology will cause, and that's why they're investing so that companies in the ecosystem can start essentially developing and start preparing for this new world where quantum computers will disrupt how we do things today. And you're right, there's other than computing, there is sensing, quantum sensing, and quantum communications, and the governments typically support essentially all three sectors: computing, sensing, and communications. And you mentioned the U.S. initiatives. There are several initiatives in Europe as well. I mean, there's a European initiative, but there's also in specific countries within Europe, like France and Germany and the UK. There's actually country-specific initiatives where each country basically is trying to support its ecosystem. And this support is important because these sometimes small companies, these small startups that are actually taking the risk to explore this new technology, cannot always support themselves and cannot always find only funding from venture capitalists or from industry. They need this a little bit of additional extra help and extra support. And it's always good to be able to tap into the government funds to actually make sure that the business stays healthy, make sure that we can hire enough people and that we can continue operating basically and exploring this technology.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So we are coming near to the end of our conversation. So I'd like to ask a few more questions. So you mentioned about specific industries or government. What do you think? What are your recommendations for a technology company like Softtek? I mean, a software company that is not necessarily focused on quantum computing like QCware should do to take part in this scientific technology?
Sure. I think there are a number of things that you can do. First of all, you can partner with someone like QCware, and we're looking forward to that because Softtek is a big company, and QCware is a very, very small company, right? So we welcome such partnerships because they give us a lot more exposure. They allow us to talk to a lot more customers, a lot more potential users. The other thing you can do is actually start using some software that's already available, quantum computing software, right? So obviously QCware is also producing some of that software that makes quantum computers and quantum algorithms easily accessible. But there are many other companies as well. I mean, there's big names like IBM and Google and Microsoft and AWS. all providing different parts of the quantum computing software stack. And you can essentially readily start engaging with that to start building some skills internally. So I think you should also, as a technology company, start thinking about how do we build internal skills and internal understanding, just like you have done with other new technologies like ML and AI and others essentially before that. So it's kind of the same game of essentially not waiting until the technology really disrupts you and is really mature and you're left behind, but essentially staying ahead of the curve and doing things soon and essentially learning new things, learning new skills, and becoming aware of what's possible.
Yeah, so we can try it from now, and some of the hardware is reachable through the cloud, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. So thank you so much for these valuable information, Yanni. But for my last question, I'm of course going to ask you about the future. Your partners, QCware has partnerships with top quantum hardware companies like D-Wave, IBM, Rigetti, IonQ. And as you said, they are trying to scale this technologies. They are trying to scale the computers and overcome some technological challenges, engineering challenges along the way. So I also would like to get your opinion on how you see the future. What are the best and worst scenarios for quantum computers?
Yeah, so actually, we've already heard from companies like IBM and Google. They've already released roadmaps, and they're very aggressive. They're actually very optimistic roadmaps, and we hope actually they achieve them. So the roadmaps say right now that in 3 years' time we will have quantum devices with about 1,000 qubits. Today we're at about 50 qubits. So in 3 years' time, we'll actually go through many architecture generations and have much larger devices. And that's about the same time when we should start seeing production level applications, right? So by having these larger devices. So we're looking forward to that. At the same time, we see a lot of new entrants into the market, into the hardware market, from companies that actually are taking a different approach, like using ion traps to build quantum hardware. These are companies like IonQ and Honeywell. And this is good that there is competition and there are alternative approaches. So the entire space does not really depend on only one type of technology, but there are essentially multiple alternatives that actually might work in different ways and might provide different advantages. And there's actually even more. There's actually photonics approaches. You might have heard companies like Xanadu and PsiQuantum that are actually taking a different approach to quantum computing altogether. Now, all of them have made different announcements over the last year, and we hope that they stick to their roadmap. Everybody has a very optimistic and very nice roadmap for the future, and we hope we start seeing these larger and larger devices very soon. I do think that it's possible to get to large production level devices in maybe the next 3 years, maybe 3 or 4 years, if we allow for some additional time, and that's going to be a significant milestone for the entire field.
So maybe at most in 5 years, the end customer will start to feel the effects of it, right?
Absolutely, yeah. So 5 years is definitely a time when we should definitely see production level applications, and maybe some of that disruption that we are talking about, some new applications. Yeah, for sure. Mm-hmm.
So looking forward to the new developments. And Yanni, we have come to the end of our conversation. Thank you so much for joining us and sparing your time. Thank you for coming.
It was a pleasure. Thank you so much for the invitation. It was a pleasure talking to you. Thanks. Take care.
Thank you again. Bye.
Bye now.